News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. President Trump's new surprise 10% baseline tariffs on U.S. trading partners around the world have now gone into effect. They kicked in just after midnight Eastern time here in the U.S. Higher duties on some countries will replace rather than add to that 10% rate if the plan goes into effect, with more Trump tariffs due to start this coming Wednesday. U.S. stocks plunged yesterday as the trade war triggered recession angst. Fed Chair Jay Powell says the Trump administration's tariffs could have a persistent impact on inflation.
I realize that the uncertainty is high, what we've learned is that the tariffs are higher than anticipated, higher than almost all forecasters predicted. We still don't know where that comes to rest, though, and we're just going to have to see that through.
Powell at the annual conference of Society for Advancing Business Editing and Writing. The Dow skidded 5.5% yesterday after falling Thursday. S&P 500 down almost 6% Friday, meaning it ended the week down 9.1%, its biggest decline since pandemic closures hit in March of 2020. And the NASDAQ composite entering a bear market. It dropped 5.8% Friday and has now fallen 21% from its record high. Meantime, countries in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia, say they are open to more negotiations with the U.S. over tariffs. They are seeking to maintain exports to the U.S. market. Crude oil plunging again Friday, along with stocks. The biggest drop for crude oil in years on speculation demand will slow. Mike McGlone, analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence, says crude oil is going even lower.
Average cost of production to produce crude oil in this country, according to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, is around $50 a barrel. We're going to that level. It's just a question of time, and now we have a decent catalyst to get there.
And McGlone is senior commodities analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. Republicans are making progress on President Trump's planned tax cuts, and Stephen Miron, chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, says he is not among those expecting a recession. He says President Trump is laying the groundwork for an economic boom through his planned tax cuts.
The president has made historic progress in the first 2 months, peeling back regulations, but there's still so much work to do. And it'll take some time for us to get that through. And so that's, maybe this is part of why there's market volatility, because implementing the totality of our plans will take some time. Congress is working on the tax package as we speak. It will take some time to pass it. It will take some time to implement it.
And Miron there on balance of power. The Senate yesterday passed a budget resolution 51-48, allowing congressional Republicans to craft legislation aimed at extending Trump's 2017 tax cuts and increasing the debt ceiling. The measure permits $1.5 trillion in new tax cuts over a decade and calls for a $5 trillion increase to the federal borrowing limit to avert the Treasury Department hitting the debt ceiling this summer. And that budget resolution heads to the House this coming week. Speaker Mike Johnson will face the challenge of wrestling the measure through his fractious group of Republicans. President Trump has dropped Biden's Medicare obesity drug coverage proposal, with the Trump administration deciding not to allow Medicare to pay for obesity drugs as President Biden had planned. And this is something that would have given millions of older Americans access to the medications and cost the government billions of dollars. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services does say, however, it may reconsider its decision in the future. President Trump says he has decided to extend the deadline for Chinese firm ByteDance to divest TikTok's U.S. operations. ByteDance confirms it is in discussions with the U.S. government about plans to keep TikTok running in the U.S. President Trump saying he is signing an executive order to keep TikTok up and running for an additional 75 days. He commented on Truth Social. Some good news from tech. NVIDIA partner Hon Hai sales surged with the data center boom. Hon Hai Precision Industries' first quarter sales rose more than 24% due to data center demand, driven by booming demand for AI servers. But should also mention Hon Hai does face challenges from tariff-induced losses. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini, and this is Bloomberg.